Well, hey there. It's Monday and time for Monday Mastery. I'm author and dating coach Rick Soderbeer, and I am happy to be here. It's another great day. Uh, and it was a beautiful afternoon. I managed to sneak out and get a bike ride in and just be able to get some fresh air. It was in the mid 60s today, or low 60s, I guess, is ultimately what it was. But it was a beautiful spring day up here, and I'm in northern Michigan, upper Michigan. So there's a difference between upper Michigan and northern Michigan. But that's a whole different conversation. So anyway, I hope you had a great week last week and a wonderful weekend. We're able to relax a little bit, and hoping you're starting out this week pretty well. And no, there's no alcohol in this one. I had one in honor of my best friend's birthday today, and but that was earlier. That was a couple of hours ago. So anyway, I hope you all are ready for tonight's conversation. And tonight is the topic that I've chosen. If you guys want to talk about anything else, please feel free to pipe in and ask your questions, because that's what I'm here for, is to answer your particular questions and touch on topics that are important to you. And one of the reasons I this week's topic I chose because I've been reading a lot about it and hearing a lot about it. And the topic is, why are so many people giving up on dating? And this is not just in the midlife singles. I'm finding it's more and more true about young singles, that especially the young guys don't want to get married or don't have any plans of getting married, and somewhat older gentlemen, uh, maybe the early parts of the midlife, the 40 and over, are looking for women overseas. They're called what they're called is passport bros. They look for women that are more traditional. And so there's a lot of stuff going on in the world of dating, and it causes a lot of consternation on both sides of the aisle, both men and women. You know, one of the things that I find is that both sides, both men and women, say, "Wow, it's just so hard to find a good man, or so hard to find a good woman." And with the way our society is, it really doesn't surprise me, and I'll go into some of this in a little bit here. But what a recent study, and I may have shared this a little bit last week, and I've shared it in my blog at least once, and I've shared it in a couple of other areas a couple of times. But a recent study showed that about 63% of men over the age of 50 will remain single, and about 72% of women over the age of 50 will remain single, assuming they're already single. Uh, and that is very concerning, because that's basically what that's saying is two-thirds of the population, of the single population, is giving up on dating. And that is a difficult place to be. And the study didn't give any particular reasoning. They didn't have any conclusive reasoning. But I think from my experience, there are a couple of different things that contribute to the problem. And one of those is that as we date, we don't learn from our past experiences. We don't take we look at the experience as being, oh crap, this was just another bad relationship or another bad date, and we don't step back and say, well, why was it a bad date or why was it a bad relationship? What are the contributing factors? What did I do to try to make it work, and what did I do to contribute to its failure? I think that's a huge part of it. Uh, Number two, I think we live in a society that we don't necessarily want to take responsibility for our own actions and our own reactions. I think that's a huge part of the problem. And again, that ties in with not stepping back and evaluating what went on, what went right, what didn't. Those are big things that we need to sit down and evaluate. And it's not something you can just do at the drop, as soon as the relationship ends. It takes a little time. It takes time for the wounds to heal. And if we've been in a relationship for any amount of time, there are going to be emotions involved. And it takes time to get past those emotions, regardless of how long or how short that relationship was. They when you end a marriage, they a good rule of thumb is to plan on taking 1 month for every year you were married to find yourself to heal and recover from the loss of that relationship or the failure of that relationship. And some people are going to move on more quickly than others. And if you're widowed, the women generally take up to 5 years plus or minus a little bit. And it just takes time. Now, men are a little less emotional about it and tend to move on a little more quickly. Uh, Most of the men that I've worked with or I've talked to have taken somewhere between 3 to 5 years to move on, because and then depending on how good the marriage was, how good the relationship was, over the years, how long the relationship lasted. It sometimes takes longer to move past those, and you'll never get past the memories, but it just takes longer to move through the grief process, and it is a process, and that's not something you can just rush. Now, I've talked to guys that have absolutely rushed it, and I know multiple gentlemen that have pushed it to the extreme where within 3 to 6 months they're out looking for a replacement wife, and that is never, in my opinion, never a healthy process. Very very rarely have I ever seen anybody process grief that quickly. Now, maybe if your spouse was in a had a long-term disease, and you had time to say your goodbyes and think about each, talk about what the survivor's future might be like, you might be able to work through some of it that way and move on a little more quickly. But it just takes time to move through that for most people. And I've seen, and I like I said, I've seen guys walk out and they're this is crass, but their wife's body is barely cold, and they're already looking again. For most women, very few, and I've experienced time with a couple of women that tried dating within the first 11 to 15 months, 12 to 15 months, and they quickly realized that was a wrong step, and that they just were not emotionally ready. I mean, for most people that are divorced, or excuse me, widowed, it takes a year to just to move through the fog of or the haze that comes over you over the for the uh, just trying to get your feet under you and trying to survive one day to the next. And so and back to the but I digress a little bit. Getting back to the reason that I think so many people are giving up on dating is because it boils down to the fact that they make poor choices, and we're all guilty of it. I've made poor choices as just as well as the rest of you have made poor choices. And I've even dated, a couple of women that couldn't see the fact that they had made poor choices. They ended up in a one-sided relationship. They thought their partner was their soulmate, and they did everything that their partner asked and more. But there was something missing on the partner's end that it didn't work out. So and that's not to say you're a bad person, and that's not to say they're a bad person. It's just sometimes hard to meet a person that meets all of your must-haves and has none of your deal breakers, and then all of a sudden they're out the door and you're left there scratching your head wondering why, what happened. And we sometimes have to recognize that there are one-sided relationships. It was a better relationship for you than it was for them. And I'm sure some of you have been in one-sided relationships where they worshiped the ground you walked on. And when you're in that position, you're and the person that's, I guess, least in love is the person that has all the power. So you can get your partner to jump through all kinds of hoops and you put in very little effort. But that's not the relationship you want. It's not the relationship you should be looking for. The relationship you should be looking for is one that's an equal give and take. And now when I say equal, it's just you're both going to give and you're both going to receive. And generally, when you're giving, you're going to give without any expectation of anything in return. And at least that's the way it should be. And as long as you're on the same page there, one of you is going to have, there are going to be ups and downs in every relationship. And I personally, I think we all have to give 100% to the relationship. But I'll give you an example of Brene Brown, and she was sharing her marriage, and uh, she called it a 50-50 relationship where each of you contributed 50% to the relationship, but rarely are we ever there. And they devised a system that if they walked in after a hard day, they might say, well, I've got 10% or I've got 20%, and the other can say, well, that's fine. I'll pick up the other 30, or I'll pick up the other 40. Or if you're both down, if you're both in a trough in emotionally, you may say, no, I haven't got any more than 20 either. So we're going to have to sit down and figure out how to be kind to each other, how to love each other through this. And I think that's very wise. Again, I tend to look at it as we both tend to want to give 100% each, and or should be willing to give 100% each. And when we can't, then we just let our partner know, well, I'm only at 80% or I'm only at 50%. So, I mean, it's the same fundamental principle. It's just described a little differently. But I think boiled down to when we get back to why are so many people giving up, it's a lack of being able to find a good partner. And a lot of that has to do with with the choices we make up front. And that's why it's so important to be able to have your must have and your deal breaker list, so that you're perfectly clear about what your next relationship should look like. And I promise you, your soulmate is out there. Your extraordinary relationship is out there. It just takes time to find. But with the declining effort that people want to put in, and part of the reason people are quitting is they don't want to put in any effort. I Most people that I talk to, they expect to find their soulmate after dating only 4 or 5 or 6 people, and that may be over, a 2 year period. We need to, finding your soulmate today or your extraordinary relationship, that takes time and effort. And some of us have more time and can invest more effort than others, but it's something that you have to understand, that that's part of the process today. This isn't high school or college where your expectations are low. If you're a midlife single, and the midlife single is anyone over age 40, if you're a midlife single, you've had some life experiences. If you're divorced, you may be divorced once, you may be divorced twice, you may be divorced 3 times. I don't know. But all of those, all of your life experiences add up to setting up the criteria that you're looking for today. Now, your must have and your deal breaker list is not going to guarantee, finding somebody that has everything on your list and nothing on your deal breaker list is not going to guarantee a successful relationship. That's just the starting point. That's just the point where, that's kind of the entry level of, or the standards that you set for what you're looking for. Because after you find somebody with what that has your quantifiable must-haves and none of your deal breakers, you still have to be able to have a conversation with them. You have to be able to develop an intellectual, a spiritual, an emotional, and a physical connection. The physical, and it's not, physical is not just physical intimacy. It's being attracted to your partner, and sometimes the attraction doesn't appear right off. Now, for guys, it's going to it will, because men are more visual. We're going to generally start our decision making process based on looks. Women, on the other hand, yes, looks are important, but I found that women are much more forgiving in the looks department. They're much more willing to take a look deeper down and explore the character of the man before writing him off. Then I think you also have to, you don't have to, I think it's highly recommended that you find somebody that speaks similar love languages. And not that you can't learn a different love language, or your partner learn a different love language. It just makes life so much easier together when you naturally speak the other's language. It's like uh, growing up here in the United States and speaking English, and then moving to France or Germany and trying to speak that language. Eventually you can do it. And if you spend enough time, 10, 15, 20 years, you might become fluent at it. But it's easier if you were born into that society, into that language, and speak it naturally. As if it were your first language. So there are a variety of reasons, I think, that contribute to the fact that people just give up. And again, a lot of that has to do with the amount of effort that most people are willing to put in. And in our immediate gratification society, most people expect things to happen right now. You know, and I always tell the story. It goes back to the TV dinner back in the 1950s. Oh man, that was, when I was a kid, that was a treat to get a TV dinner. And as terrible as they were, the TV dinners were kind of a treat. And it's progressed. Then you have the drive-in restaurants or the drive-through restaurants. The advent of McDonald's and Burger King, and back in my day it was Burger Chef. And there was a really good one as a kid that I really loved near Duluth, Minnesota, and it was called Sandy's. And they just had little, just the plain hamburgers, and it wasn't real fancy, but they just had a taste to them. And I just loved that little place. But I digress. You could walk in, and in a couple of minutes you had a meal, and you could walk out and eat it in the car. And now we've got microwave ovens, and we've got cell phones that we have instant communication. Lord, when I was doing some traveling sales for my family business, if I wanted to check in or report in, I had to go find a payphone. Now, how many of you remember having to go call on a payphone, and then you had to have the correct change? Initially it started with a dime, and then they bumped it up to a quarter, and so it was and sometimes it was a challenge to find the phone. But now all of this stuff is at our fingertips, and we tend to think that our relationships should be the same way. They should be just with a snap of a finger. We should be able to find our soulmate. And in the United States, with 330 or 340 million people, you would think that you'd have a soulmate just down the block, but that's not the way it happens. Again, because of your experiences. Now, the part of the other factor that plays a huge role, and I think it plays a bigger role for women than it does for men, but I've seen men get burned by relationships too. It's the baggage that we carry with us. I find that, and ladies, if you want to disagree with me, please chime in. But ladies, I find that women tend to hang on to their emotional experiences much more tightly than men do. And I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just a simple observation. And so when you accumulate and for everybody it's different, when you accumulate a certain number of negative experiences, rather than evaluating what those experiences are, you tend to, and men do this too. So ladies, please don't come at me with the long knives, but ladies tend to hang on to these emotions and live more by these emotions than men do. Men tend to compartmentalize things and say, okay, well, next. But and that makes it more difficult for men to find a woman that's not dragging a ton of stuff around with her. So there are great women out there, guys. For those of you that are listening, there are great women out there. I've met a lot of them. And ladies, there are a lot of great men out there. But a lot of it depends on how we show up. Are we negative? Are we walking into a relationship with a negative or attitude or a chip on our shoulder that all men are jerks? Or all guys walking into a date or a relationship with all women are damaged? That's not the way to walk into, especially early on in the dating world or the dating scene. And again, because we're in such an immediate gratification society, we tend to think that okay, if this one doesn't work out, the next one, if we're this close, that we can toss it away without digging deeper to see what the issue might be. I don't know if that made any sense. It made sense in my head. But sometimes we discard relationships before we've had a chance to explore them. Now, that's not to say we need to stay in relationships that we already recognize are toxic or not the right relationship, or they don't have the qualifications that we're looking for. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that a lot of times we can get into a relationship, and the minute it starts getting difficult, we just toss it out the door and move on to the next relationship, because again, we live with these things, and it's a matter of going to the next dating app and swiping right or swiping left and finding the next person. We don't have the commitment mentality that we did 50 years ago. 50 years ago, we didn't have the ability, we didn't have social media to take a look and connect with our old high school classmates, or with other people of the opposite sex, and strike up conversations online, and having a backup plan. And I was just watching I just saw some statistics that, if I'm not mistaken, more than 50, I think it was closer to 70% of women walk into a relationship with a backup plan. Now, ladies, if you're walking into a relationship, if he's making a commitment to you, and you already have a backup plan, even before you're getting started, like, holy crap, that's setting yourself up for pretty much premeditated failure. Knowing that you don't have to work hard at the relationship, because there's somebody right behind this guy. And so that was kind of a shocking statistic that I discovered. So it takes two to tango. It takes two to make a relationship work. And by no means am I ever going to tell you that you need to settle for less than extraordinary. But you also need to walk into, if you're going to commit to a relationship, if you dated somebody and you committed to being monogamous, then you need to put some effort into it, and to make it work, and not just make him do all the work to prove that he's worthy, or vice versa. You both have to come to the table with something of value for the other. It can't, again, it can't be a one-sided relationship. If one person is coming and making all the effort, and trying to make it work, then the other person should step up to the plate, and you should be willing to obligate yourself to do the same thing. It's not it cannot be a healthy relationship. If you're, and I don't know how many of the midlife single ladies play the game of being hard to get. Well, ladies, if you do that, if you're going to play the game of being hard to get, you quickly become hard to want, because a good man is not going to jump through those hoops. He's going to expect some reciprocation for his efforts. it's uh, I was watching just a clip from I think it was an older clip of Wendy Williams, and I don't know who the guy was that he had on the show, and maybe some of you have seen the clip. It's about he was saying that if you're going to date him, he expects in how he phrased it is you're going to make daddy a sandwich. And she says, wait. And he says, no, listen, uh, if we go out on a date, it's going to you expect me to pay, right? He said, if we go out and somebody says something sarcastic to you, you expect me to stand up and and I don't want to say fight for your honor, but you expect me to punch him in the mouth. And when we walk out of wherever we're at, you expect me to open that door for you. You expect me to open the car door for you. So if I ask you to make me a sandwich, that should be some part of the reciprocal commitment. And there's a lot of logic to that and it doesn't make any difference whether it's man or a woman. You have to be willing to put in effort to make a relationship work. Even with your soulmate, you still have to make a commitment to it. You still have to put effort in. There's no such thing as a relationship that's not going to have problems. None of us are perfect, but I believe we all have somebody out there that's perfect for us. But we all are going to run into problems, whether it's work or health or emotional upheaval. We're all going to go through those. Somebody's going to lose a job, or somebody's going to have somebody close to them that dies, and we need to be there and be supportive. And so it needs to be a 50-50 effort where you're both contributing, or 100-100 effort where you're both contributing to the outcome, because you want a positive outcome. So anyway, you guys have been really quiet today. So if you've got any questions, please drop those in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to answer those for you. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm headed with, kind of the landscape of dating today, at least as I see it, and in working with singles, working at getting back into the dating world. And I've found that once you get past that, get into that 5 to 10 year range, it starts getting a little bit iffy. And beyond the 10-year range, most people become very jaded about dating and about finding their soulmate. And for whatever reason, I'm in my 14th year of being single, and in the last 7 years, I've been doing a lot of traveling up to Upper Michigan and Kansas, and some places in the winter. So it's a little difficult to set down roots anywhere, or to find someone who's willing to bounce around like I do. But the point is that it seems that in the last few months, I've kind of regained an excitement or an enthusiasm for dating and finding my soulmate. Maybe it's that my relationship with God is changing. It's evolving. And in the last couple of months, I just have a sense of peace of almost everything, that I know everything will work out. And so it's when I start looking at it from that perspective, I don't put any pressure on myself to I got to get it done, I got to get it done, or I got to give up. No, I know that in the season that I'm in personally, um, it's going to last another 6 months, another year, and then that season will change. That season will be over, and then we start looking or start a new chapter, a new season in our lives. And I'm hoping you guys do the same thing. That Abby uh, last week shared that she worked 2 jobs and it was hard for her to date. Okay, that's a season in your life. Hopefully that when that season is over, that she'll make the decision, assuming she wants to. I cannot put that desire in you or force you to want something that you don't want. But if you're here, if you're working with me, if you're listening to me, I'm hoping that your desire is to find your soulmate. And the idea is at least for me, is to be able to help you in that search, to help you, um, to help guide you, to be your guide through the process, to help you work through the tough times and the frustrating times, and to give you tools to, whether it's Monday Mastery, or whether it's my book Dating Backward, or my course, um, Dating Made Simple Academy, or one-on-one coaching, whatever it is. My hope is that I can provide you with some tools uh, to help you travel this journey of singleness a little more effectively, and with a little less emotional carnage, because there can be a lot of emotional carnage when we're dating, especially if we get emotionally attached to somebody, if we date somebody for a while. The emotions that start weaving themselves together can be, oh man, it can be a bugger to let go of. But we have to be able to uh, we have to be able to step back from those and take time to heal and recover from those. That's when you start developing connections with somebody, and there's a lot of raging hormones. There's oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. There's some other things, cortisol. All of this stuff uh, plays a big role in our relationships and developing relationships. And now, and over time, when you're with somebody, those hormones settle down a little bit. They kind of level off, but they're still a big factor. And when the relationship ends, it's like you just don't have that dopamine rush that you have with your partner. Whether it's like being an alcoholic and taking your next drink, and there's no alcohol in this one. That was in the last one. This is just pure diet Dr. Pepper and ice. It's getting kind of watered down, but the idea is that you want to you want to be you want to get yourself to a point where you're emotionally stable, you're emotionally healthy, and you're ready to date. Because a lot of times, and I know when I first started dating 14 years ago, that I wasn't emotionally ready. Even though I'd been separated for about 3 years, I wasn't ready. It took me about 13 months before I started to settle down. And then once I started settling down emotionally, then I started to meet some better, higher quality women. So, um, and it's not to say any of them were terrible. It's just they were women that just didn't meet my meet all of my criteria. So, um, so again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to feel free to pop into the comments here and let me know. Otherwise, I'll keep going for a little bit longer, and I hope I've been giving you some value here today. And if nothing else, just tell me, have you been getting value out of this? I know some of you have been hanging on here since almost the very beginning. So I'm hoping that what I'm saying is resonating with you. And if not, well, that's okay too. I mean, tell me, because then I can make sure the topics in the future are something that are more exciting or maybe more beneficial. But and ultimately, I do think it's important to talk about why people are quitting dating. Number one, because it starts to limit the dating pool. Now, and I want to clarify that there are some people that just don't need to date, for whatever reason it is, whether they have they've been physically or sexually molested, or and just have huge emotional issues. uh there are people that just shouldn't be dating at all, but for the most part, most of us should be. And I'll kind of give you a glimpse into this week's blog, is that God created us to be in relationship, and not just with friends, but he designed us to have companionship, male and female. And the the question that popped into my head over the weekend is that, are all of these people that are supposedly quitting dating or giving up on dating, is that something like what Satan did to Job? Yeah, he took away Job's his wealth, his family, gave him ill health. Is that something that Satan is doing in our lives? That's he's encouraging us to go against what God created us to do. And scientifically or statistically, we do better when we're in a relationship. We do better when we're a couple. We're healthier. We generally eat better. We generally live longer. We're generally happier. Now, again, there are miserable relationships that people are unhappy, just being there, and they suffer through it. But when you're in a good relationship, you should it should that relationship should enhance your life. It should make you want to be a better person. It should make you want to get up in the morning, or maybe not. Maybe it would make you want to snuggle up and say, "I love you. Good morning." It may be make you want to do something special for your partner, without them expecting it, or without them having to ask. Maybe it's as simple as taking out the garbage, guys. Or ladies, maybe it's just as simple as saying, I really appreciate everything that you do for me. And ladies, you'd be surprised that it's so much easier to keep a guy around when he's appreciated. Men need appreciation first and then love. And women are just the opposite. Women need to be loved, and I'm not talking about sexually. Women need to be loved and then appreciated. It's just the opposite, and we need to recognize that's kind of how that stuff works. So, guys, make sure that you're loving to your girlfriends or your wives. And ladies, make sure you appreciate the guy for what he does for you. And you know, it's again, uh, women tend to need to they want to hear the appreciation, or the not the appreciation, they want to hear the compliments on a regular basis. And ladies, if if you compliment your man, you know, once a month would be amazing. I know in my last relationship, over a 2-year period, I got 2 or 3 good compliments. And those things still stick with me. Even though it was like 2 years and I got, maybe 3 compliments. It was amazing. And guys are late, and this is for the ladies. Guys are very simple that way. We just need to know that what we're doing makes you happy. It makes you feel loved. And if it doesn't, well, then you have to tell us that too, but not in a nagging way. Tell us in a loving way. So anyway, since y'all are so quiet tonight and just kind of hanging back there and not saying much, and I'm kind of talked out. So if we're all good tonight, if there's anything else you want me to share, anything else specific that you want me to talk about, pop it in the comments really quick, because otherwise we're going to wrap this up and call it a night, and then we'll come up with something for next week. And if you have any subjects that you'd like me to talk about, please feel free to drop those send me a message on Facebook, or in YouTube, or in LinkedIn, because we're broadcasting on all 3 tonight. So I'll take that as a no, everybody's happy and satisfied, and we'll go from there. So you guys have a great evening, and I will talk to you all next week on Monday Mastery. I'm Rick Sodebeer, author and dating coach. And you all have an awesome week and a great weekend. And hopefully your weather is going to be nice and warm. I'm going to end up with I think 3 rainy days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So kind of the weekend is shot. But anyway, I hope you all have a great week. I love you guys. Thanks for hanging in there and hanging out. And I will see you next Monday.